Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Ghoulfriend Hour. I'm your host, your ghost host, Morgan Fezza, and today we have the fabulous, the wonderful, the Staticom project team. So I'm going to pass the torch to you guys and let you introduce yourselves.
Sure. Tony, why don't you take the lead?
All right. I'm Tony Rathman. Been involved in paranormal investigation, ITC research for the past 14 years. My wife is also an investigator with me. She's not here tonight. She's super tired, fell asleep about 3 minutes after we got home. So I don't think she'll be joining us, but that's who I am.
I'm Lourdes Gonzalez. I'm a paranormal investigator. Um, Paranormal's been with me all my life. My family practices espiritismo, so I kind of grew up with it. But I wasn't really in touch with it because I saw something that terrified me. So I stayed away from it for a long time, even though I had paranormal experiences. And then I met Ron, and he got me back into the paranormal investigating. And then we started working with the white noise, and I guess you can take it from there, I guess.
I can take it from there.
Yeah.
So I am Ron Iacovetti. I am friend to both Lourdes Gonzalez and, ironically, Tony Rathman and Cherie Rathman, who's not here but very missed whenever she can't be with us. Needs to be said. So I started out investigating paranormal stuff when I lived in Los Angeles for 14 years. I'm originally from New Jersey, which is where we are now. When I was out there, I began, and I had an early affinity with not just EVP, which is fascinating, but when I saw like spirit box stuff, and I don't know if you know Chad Lindbergh from Fast and Furious, and he was on a show with John L. Tenney. We did a spirit box thing with him, and he got an immediate response that said his name in real time, and I was hooked. Um, so I began there. 2014, I moved back to the East Coast, got with a team. I had been with one out there as well, and I kept pursuing this concept that I was still kind of enamored by the fact that it was even possible from the first time I had seen what appeared to be real-time dialogue with spirit or whomever we communicate with. And I took up also an interest in ITC. Unlike Tony, I am not a skilled tools person. So Tony built some of the best boxes I've ever heard, like spirit box, ghost boxes, silent, effective. I'm not that guy. I have tools here only in as much as I need to break things or screw things in. That's it. Should I solder, I would have fewer fingers to high five, so I don't. But I was very intrigued with this whole ITC stuff, which is instrumental transcommunication or the real-time dialogue versus recording and reviewing with EVP, and came across what was called direct radio voice, which started in Europe. It was part of original EVP research, which is electronic voice phenomena, and not pioneers from like the TV show pioneers that people in the States may know, like Ghost Hunters, Paranormal State. I'm talking the people who actually put this stuff as a study, a research on the map. Konstantin Radove, Friedrich Jurgensen, Marcello Bacci, Dr. Annabella Cardoso. And so I came to know Dr. Annabella Cardoso's work in direct radio voice, and they would use white noise as support, audio support during EVPs, like playing like a low bed of white noise while they recorded. Direct radio voice was born of that. And when I saw a gentleman in Italy named Marcello Bacci with an old vacuum tube radio, didn't have all the reverb and lights and blinky stuff that they have now, having conversations through the white noise in real time, like we're doing. And I was stunned. And I looked at her and I went, how is nobody doing this? So in 2019, we brought it back and we developed it through just the radio. We ran it through a thing with reverb. We were what's called heterodyning frequencies, blending them using tone generators. We tried everything. The house didn't blow up. That's a success. Moved on with it and then had a version of direct radio voice that we partnered up with the Rathmans on. Oh. We had been doing a podcast with them for a number of years before they got involved, but they did some of the best research. Tony's boxes he never sold because he was all about just the research. So great people, great body of work. We had a mutual interest with this ITC stuff, so we started working on this. And so we were doing what was, again, direct radio voice, but we did a couple of things to modify. We took the entire review process. You know, when people record in the paranormal, they take it home, put it in software, amplify it, denoise it, slow it down, present it. So we thought if we want to communicate in real time, why do we wait to go home and do that?
Yeah.
The moment's gone. So we, through a gentleman named Keith Clark at Varanormal.com, acquired a software setup, a digital workspace, and we started doing all that cleanup stuff in the moment. So now we're cleaning it up and filtering it in real time. I had an experience where I believe it was my mother and grandmother came through so fast that in the moment all I heard was on. But they had said my name, Ron, and then there was other like heartfelt, emotional things you could hear in it when I slowed it down 50%. So I sound like I'm intoxicated on the recording, but the voices sound completely normal. I may have been dumb as a stump, as intoxicated at the moment, but I was sober. They sounded clear. So that reminded me of the pioneers, Konstantin Radeve, who was a parapsychologist and who studied under Carl Jung, philosopher who was important to us, we can get to later. And I remembered, he said, these voices come in faster than we can detect and faster than the human vocal tract is capable of speaking. And there's no way, it could be an auctioneer on cocaine. Nobody can talk that fast without tripping over their words and slurring and stuff. Lourdes is by trade a court reporter, so she hears people talking at right, different speeds, cadences, and everything. And what did you say when you heard how that sounded slowed down?
There's no way that someone can speak that fast. And even if they tried, they would slur on their words. It would all mush together.
Yeah.
But he's 50% slowed down. There's no way a human being can talk that fast. And people do talk fast, but not that fast.
So
Right.
I looked at that and went, all right, the pioneers mentioned it comes in super fast. I just had this experience. Now, how much, even with ghost boxes, how much are people missing because it's coming in so fast? So at that point, the Rathmans were already on board with us. And I told Tony what I wanted to do. I said, this is the idea I have. This is why. And if it took him 48 hours, it took him forever. It took him no time at all. That's how he works. And he found the component to this day that we use. So now we're doing something that ITC never had before, pioneers or otherwise, which is we're slowing down the flow of live white noise in real time to hear more of the dialogue at the moment. So that's the methodology. And then just to not have my voice be the only thing going here, I'll pass it back over to Tony because there were two specific incidents, one on their side in Arizona, one on ours in New Jersey, that led to why we call it the Staticom project and not direct radio voice anymore.
Well, I'll speak to what we did, and then I'll let you guys speak to the mine. But we were doing a live presentation. I had a live audience of about 40 people, and I went to hook up DRV at that time because it was still DRV. It still used a broadband radio to generate the white noise. When I opened up my bag, I saw there was a sleep machine in there, and it had a white noise function on it. And I thought, wow, I wonder if that would work. Well, I tested it live in front of the group, plugged it in, asked a question, and got an answer. And I thought, wow. And then about 2 seconds later, I got the answer again. And then again, and then again, because it wasn't live white noise. It was a 3-second recording. And so it repeated every 3 seconds. Well, the response I got embedded onto the chip in the sleep machine, just as if you were doing EVP, and it embeds into the recorder. So it repeated every 3 seconds. And I thought, okay, this isn't live white noise. And that's where we came to the conclusion, hey, let's get a live white noise generator, not recorded white noise.
Oh
Yeah, and
my gosh.
That's how you know the difference between an innovator and someone who's just kind of curiously poking around the ghosty stuff, because that was ballsy to do in front of a live audience. You could do it at home, fall on your face, it doesn't work, who cares? He did it in front of an audience and it worked.
That's what's so great about
And it worked. And that's the spirit of an innovator. He thought of nothing else except I have this idea and I'm sitting in the middle of an opportunity. And he did it. And that's great. And that's one of the reasons we love working with him. So you tell our story, I guess. So Tony mentioned we were in a zinc mine in New Jersey. For all intents and purposes, this is a geological Faraday cage. Radio and phones and their signals go there to die. No reception. What happened?
We went deep inside the mine and we set it up, and we got voices. We got curse words. We got a whole bunch of voices. And in one, we got Johnny Zaffis's name, the demonologist.
Yep.
Yeah. So it worked without any radio reception whatsoever. Voices came through, and voices. When I say voices, I mean conversation. They were having conversations with each other in the mind.
Oh
So
my
those two
gosh.
things then were really the key to us being able to remove the radio. So anybody from a scientific or academic background really dismisses what's considered to be, or at least was shown on television shows, of what ITC was, which today, at least in the US, you say, even if you say ITC and they know that it stands for instrumental transcommunication, they think spirit box. Every ghost show out there, that's what they use.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
DRV or direct radio voice kind of got left out of the progression of paranormal with TV shows using spirit boxes. So luckily, Ron and Lourdes went back to that process. And then, like I said, scientists and skeptics will say, oh, you're getting stray radio. Well, we no longer have a radio. A white noise generator cannot pick up any radio wave at all, not walkie-talkies, not baby monitors, not satellite, nothing. It does not have the ability to do that. The second side of it is that broadband white noise is every sound from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, basically every sound the human ear can hear, but there's no vocal data in it whatsoever. There's no syllables, there's no words, there's no sentences. So technically, these conversations shouldn't be there.
Right. And so this is one of the things that makes the partnership with the Rathmans for us. It was a no-brainer, and it was a beautiful thing to do because we're all on the same page. We have a lot of the same skills. We have some differences. Obviously, her with bionic hearing is crazy. But we look to authenticate what we're doing. We don't want to fool ourselves. And if there's an obvious pitfall, we want to address it if we can. So Tony nailed down the first and the big one. Everything in ITC, because it was synonymous with the boxes, was when you hear voices, it's just radio bleed through. You're getting leakage from the radio because it's sweeping through broadcast voices. Your anomaly is voices, and you're using voices. How do you tell, right? It's not reliable. It's distracting. So we understood that the boxes still work. We don't say that they don't work, but they come with a higher level of cynicism,
right?
Because of that. So we use generators now. The sleep machine that Tony used, like he said, it's pre-recorded. So now we're using a generator that makes live white noise. The system's closed circuit. Generator to an interface to the computer that has all the things that filter and slow it down. Then it goes to a speaker. There was one other thing that was a criticism of ITC work or spirit communication with anything to do with radios, which was the radio bleed through, which we got rid of. And then the other one is that you're hearing warbles and artifacts of sound that you're thinking is voices, because white noise is random, and we can always discern patterns in randomness. So I'll unpack that for a minute, because it sounds like it could be a criticism, but it's actually counter to the argument the person's trying to make. When they say that we can discern patterns in randomness, that's an appeal to our intellect. That's how we communicate. When we hear sounds assembled in some kind of cohesive state, making words, phrases, sentences, that's how we communicate. We identify the language what we know that very same way. We don't ever hear the cackle, meow, 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 and go, oh, he wants the car keys to get treats again. That doesn't happen. So we're able to distinguish language pretty well, especially her being a reporter. She's paid by the state of New York to take down testimony. She listens to people talk different speeds, cadences, dialects, etc., talking over each other.
Patterns of sounds.
Right.
That's what you're listening to. When you listen to someone speak, you're listening to patterns of sound.
So that's an appeal to the intellect. So that's not debunking it. The second thing, and this is very, very important, especially for the people who always like to throw on that they're scientifically minded in this field, white noise is not fundamentally random. When they say random, random is what we say as people when we can't measure it, when we can't calculate it, we can't compute it. It's an empty drawer, right? It's not fundamentally random. There's charged ion particles from the sun, electromagnetic fields, quantum fields, determinism, if it is in speech, which in fact, these are formed sentences and words that have cohesion, they have context. they're referential. So it's not fundamentally random. The white noise is simply computationally irreducible. At the moment, you can't measure and calculate all the things that are affecting it, but the outcome we can discern, especially with a linguistic expert, it's words. We're hearing speech. So we tried to take everything off the table to make it, as foolproof as possible.
Which, can I just say, well, actually, I have a couple things to say. So, Lourdes, kudos to you, girlfriend, because I'm over here, I'm partially deaf, so trying to hear, like, even just like somebody talk to me normally, I'm like, I'm sorry, could you say that again like 8 times? I would be a terrible, terrible recorder. So, that is such a neat job. So, awesome job on that.
Thank
And
you.
holy cow, I did not realize, like, when you listen to the clips that you sent me, right? I'm going through them, and by the way, they gave me the Chili Willies through and through. Like, I've seen some of your YouTube stuff, but I don't know, like, there's one in there, and I'm not gonna give too much away because we'll get to that later, but the fluidity of it and just how clear it is and how it's just so different. It's unlike anything that I've ever experienced, I've ever heard. Like, it's
Yeah.
so neat, and you don't realize, like, how I don't know how much goes into it. Like, listening to you talk about this, I'm like, it's so simple, but to bring all four of you together to put this together is like an incredible amount of work and intelligence and, just like you said, ingenuity. Like, that's amazing. So I just wanted to applaud you guys for a quick second because
Thank
it's
you.
I appreciate it.
astounding. It's astounding. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that
Yeah,
is
it's
insane.
part of what it comes from is not only do you see, obviously, we have a great respect for each other amongst the four of us, but you have to have reverence for the people who came first because they did things that failed. Out of those failures came other options and successes. You have to know those things. There's no point. It's like if you started a game and somebody goes, I'm giving you 10 points. You go, no, all right, I'll just start at 0. Why would you
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
Some of the work has been done. So we looked at what had been done before, and the direct radio voice with that guy Marcello Bacci in Italy was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it was just white noise on an empty channel. So we went with that conceptually, and then we started to do stuff to like filter it in real time, slow it down in real time. From using ghost boxes, Lourdes used to point out that a lot of times the voices were either buried in the of the sweep, or they were so loud and clear that you didn't even hear the sweep. It replaced it. And then we realized that what's happening is what's called stochastic resonance. When something enters into that 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz that Tony explained as everything we can hear, when something enters that, if it resonates with just one of those frequencies that are all at an even level, even amplitude, that one frequency that resonates with those two gain in amplitude, they get resonance. Then the method through filtration lops off the bottom part of below where the voices have leapt up to be resonant. So you have less noise distraction and the vocals are a little bit clearer and more prominent.
So depending where it resonates, you'll either hear it really low or you hear it really loud when you're using a ghost box, because we believe they're not using the sweeping, they're using the white noise within the sweep. That's what we think.
Yeah, they're not fragmenting the sounds in the sweep and putting them around. Tony can tell you better than anybody. He built the boxes, right? That's not what we believe to be how they even the spirit boxes work.
No.
That's crazy though. Like, especially like you said before, just kind of going out on a whim and jumping into a sound machine and that being the basis for this like absolute magic. I just think I'm mind blown. It's not often. Listen, I could talk your ear off, for hours and hours. It's not often that I get left speechless, and I'm just sitting here and I'm like unpacking this because I'm just like, that is so insane that you just took that leap, and that's what came of it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we were put in a circumstance where we tested the method by being underground in a mine where we could get no signal. And we wanted to see if it worked because spirit boxes were not working in there at all. What Tony did, that was the big leap of faith. That was the guts and glory because he didn't have to do that. He had an audience and he took a chance on something he believed would pay off. And that was like the final thing between the mine and that. Then we said, now we remove the radio and we
Yeah.
have a clean, no contamination environmental system now.
Yeah. And we actually have, so in the comment section, we have a couple of people that just absolutely adore you guys. So they would just wanted to say hi quick. So we have a Gina Dunham. She said, Ron
yeah.
and Lourdes. She's like, oh, the little heart. And then Brad Cooney, who is singing your praises because
Brad Cooney.
yes, he said, "Hey neighbor." He said, "Tell him I said hello." But he said that he had you guys at the house in between, and he experienced your method. So he also is attesting to it and speaking its praises. So I think that that's really neat. How did that go? Do you guys want to
It
chat about
was-
some of your locations? Maybe get into that a little bit.
We could. The house in between was fantastic. Him and John Bullard and Alice Jackson, who's obviously the homeowner, couldn't have been kinder people. Couldn't have been more welcoming to us. They're just the sweetest people. We went down there and we did live sessions where Tony and Cherie were joining us from Arizona, and our other co-host Chris, Olga, and Audra Keeler were joining us from North Carolina. So we did a couple live ones on Facebook and triangulated between the three couples. And then one of the, I'll let either one of these guys speak to it, but one of the things that came through was the most prominent word we ever get ever when communicating with the other side, and it is the last name of the gentleman below us, Rathman. If your system doesn't say Rathman, you don't have a system.
But
They're
it was
calling
pretty
you out.
cool. In the house in between, when the four of us were doing it
Yeah.
with Alice and John and Brad. Oh, and we got Brad Cooney's name, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty damn
Oh, you
clear.
did? You
But-
got Brad? That's awesome.
Yeah, Brad Cooney,
The whole name.
the whole name. But Chris wrote something on a piece of paper, and when he asked if they can say it, and they said it. It was Zebra. And when he turned it around, that was the name, Zebra. It
Did
was
you
in that
guys like
episode, right?
absolutely melt?
think so.
I would have melted where I was sitting if that would have happened. That is so awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
I think it was in.
And then what else came out? A voice came out and said,
Oh, remember what it said about the Rathmans, Tony?
Not off the top of my head, no.
"Save her, Rathmans" came through.
Oh yeah.
Save her, Rathman.
And his wife Cherie looked like somebody just put voltage in her chair. She went because she heard it.
No, yeah.
What
She
was
heard it.
what was the like so what were your experiences like there? Did you have anything that correlated to what some of the mediums and the other investigators had picked up in the house?
We picked up more, I guess, personal stuff because Alice's daughter came through.
Yep. So is it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Alice's daughter came through. I'm trying to remember if anything of the house came through.
There were
I
a
can't
couple of them,
remember.
but that was something that some of the mediums did pick up, though, was stuff with her because her daughter
Yeah.
was in the first movie, but not in the second one because she had since passed.
So,
Yeah.
but we had a lot of personal stuff. We didn't get to see the ball coming down the stairs. No, none of that happened to us. But we did get a lot of personal responses through Staticom already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
Staticom.
I'm always
Yeah.
curious to that because I know sometimes too, and maybe you guys can speak to this a little bit, but I thought it was really neat. I've been kind of studying a little bit. So we had recently investigated at a place with My Haunted Manor, and they use again, it's from the UK. It's this Paracast, and so the way that the frequencies kind of send out through the building, it kind of hypes stuff up a little bit. So I kind of was looking into that more, and there was a lot of theories on the way that frequencies, like certain frequencies, can kind of amp up energy. So what you guys are doing, have you noticed that when you're using this particular method, that sometimes not just the actual vocalizations and the voices coming through, but do you notice that the energy in the areas that you're in or activity starts to kind of hype up a little bit while you're using it? Like physical activity?
Tony, want to take it?
Well, what Ron refers to as axioms, and it's a perfect description for it. There's a lot of them that flow through the paranormal. Like if you face two mirrors together, it creates a portal.
Ugh, I hate that.
Everyone's heard that. Everyone knows that. But what's the basis behind that? What's the logical unfolding of how that happens? Nobody knows. It's kind of like you say Thanksgiving, everyone's thinking turkey. Well,
Yeah,
because
can't
most
do it.
people have that. There's a lot of axioms within the paranormal where things are just taken for granted and not pulled apart, not looked at. The whole reason behind using a spirit box, and nothing against Frank Sumption, it was a great invention. But his theory was that while scanning through radio stations, the spirits would take the bits and fragments of radio and create their own sentences. Well, do we know whether they can do that or not? No, we don't. But what we do know is that they don't speak through the radio frequencies. They speak in between them, which is why the responses on a spirit box are usually relatively short, a word or two, maybe 3. Staticom, you can get full sentences. Ron and Lorda had 1 minute and 7 seconds of one particular spirit talking.
He has that one.
Yeah. So when you talk about energy, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Well, I think that's probably correct. If spirits become energy, they're going to be made up of energy, frequency, and vibration. Well, guess what white noise is? Energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah.
So it's an exact match of components.
Yeah.
So do we think that the energy can raise based off of who's there, whether they're paying attention, whether they're not paying attention? Yeah, we know it can. But can I tell you that an EM generator being sent out into the atmosphere makes a difference in what occurs? No, I can't, because that starts to fall into the axioms that spirits even use electromagnetic frequency.
Yeah, brilliantly
like
put.
it.
I was trying to do the heart thing when Tony was saying it, but I couldn't get my other hand out of the way. I can't do it. No, I feel it though, Tony.
Right there.
I feel it.
wanna
I just
see
can't. I just can't do it. Yeah, I'm not
I'm
saying that
trying-
word. But he's absolutely right. There are so many, and axioms are like they're just passed down beliefs. Like nobody questions them. It's just like how it is, and people just kind of run with it too. This happens a lot with stone tape theory or psychometry. That somehow wood or materials can soak up emotional experiential states, store them, and then for reasons that no one's ever been able to explain, suddenly releases them like a toxin in the environment, and then mediums and people pick up on those. I think that those things as phenomenon happen, but I don't think they happen that way, the way people think. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with our project too. You see, we have analytic idealism and ITC. Everybody has a philosophy of reality, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
The general worldview, the world instantiation that's accepted by most people, especially in the paranormal when they're talking or referring to science, is what's called materialism or physicalism. That there's a physical 3D world out there. It's outside of us. It is exhaustively explained in quantities. It has no qualities, because qualities are experiential. They come from consciousness, right? Tastes, flavors, feelings, and those things are created by consciousness. And people who believe that this material world out there is separate from us, outside of consciousness, believe that consciousness is created by your brain. So it's not out there. But as an explanation for reality, that runs into problems and internal contradictions, which is called the hard problem of consciousness, which is if matter out there has no experiential states, there's nothing it's like to be the table. There's nothing it's like to be the wall. It doesn't have love and fear. It doesn't have emotional stuff. It doesn't have experience, which is the only thing that we can know in nature. The one true given for nature is experience. Everything we know, how heavy something is, how something feels, how it looks, how it tastes, is through experience. So that's the problem with the physicalist or material view, is that there's no experiential states like that in the material 3D world outside of our consciousness out there. But then matter in your head, which is your brain, which is matter just like the stuff out there, suddenly
as consciousness
gives rise to consciousness. It's a contradiction. If it can't have it out there, it can't create it in here.
Right.
Right. So what we do is we looked at a philosophy that's been around for a while. And I mentioned Carl Jung before, one of the EVP pioneers, Konstantin Radovay studied under him, he has versions, there's different versions of idealism. So analytic idealism suggests that there is a world out there separate from us, but it's not physical. It's mental. Not my mental processes, not yours. But the same way my thoughts and feelings are objective to you, right? You can't wish them to be different. You can't wish that the grass outside turns blue and affected all of a sudden. So those things to you are all objective. It's the same way that reality out there is also mental.
Yeah.
And what we experience through perception is a representation of the actual world out there. There's a world out there, but what we experience is a representation of it. It's not the world itself.
Yeah.
In all of its glory in every last detail. Like on a computer, you have an icon, you click it, a folder opens, you click that little thing inside the folder, and a video opens up, and you have sound and video and movements and pictures, and right? If you had to see every line of code, every codec, every programming thing that went into that, your head would explode.
Yeah.
Right? So you only get the salient points that you need to navigate it. That's how our senses work. We get just what we need to go through
To survive.
to survive.
Yeah.
So when you look at that now, idealism as a philosophy of what reality is, now go back to stone tape theory or psychometry. The house and the floorboards are not physical things. They're mental things that are represented the way we perceive them. And then mental things, right? And people are saying that these emotions are trapped. Well, emotions affect thoughts and thoughts affect motions in us every day. So we know in nature that happens. So now it doesn't have any contradictions. Something happened there. There's an emotional thing that happened that, let's say, as they say, is left behind. It's a mental thing mixing with this house, which is also a mental thing that represents itself to us as a house.
Mental processes mixing in with other mental processes.
So there's no more conflict anymore. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we're big on the philosophy now. Everything in the paranormal becomes natural, not supernatural, and it's nature doing what it does. It doesn't need to fit into
That's it.
a physical explanation for something. Physics can't measure those things,
Yeah.
right? How much does your love weigh? What is the length of your thoughts? Right? They can't. Physics tells you what nature is going to do. They tell us what we can expect next, what it doesn't do. It doesn't speak to what is.
And analytic idealism does not conflict with anything that we already know
Yeah.
to be true. Anything in science, it doesn't conflict.
So that's
It allows for everything, makes everything normal.
that's what hooked us on it with even more, because under analytic idealism, stone tape theory or psychometry, when mediums come into place, they touch something, they pick up on the history. It makes sense because it's mental stuff mixing with mental stuff. If you take it the other way, then they have to explain how physical stuff like wood or crystals or rock took in emotional states,
Qualities.
held on to qualities, and then for reasons nobody ever explains, how does it get released at given times that people pick up on them all of a sudden? There's a lot of explanatory gaps in that.
It can't store qualities if it can have qualities. It
Right.
doesn't make any sense.
Wow.
So tell kids to start studying philosophy too. 'Cause that's
I
what
feel like I need to go back to
means.
school because I'm sitting here and I'm just like, okay. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm like, wow, I never saw it like that before. That's so awesome.
Science and
feel like
physics and all
it's-
that stuff is important, but it doesn't speak to the nature of what is. It doesn't tell you what reality, what it's like to be something.
It
I
helps
feel like-
us. It helps us predict the behavior of nature.
Right.
You
But
know?
I think another thing too, especially in the paranormal, is we see a lot of like you kind of mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of refuting. There's a lot of like they look at something and they're like, okay, we could debunk this 6 different ways, or we can. And I feel like what's really neat about this is you lay it on the table, and like I don't really, there's not really a way to like like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like this is just kind of in your face. It is what it is. There's an explanation for it. And it's like, I mean, and the way that I see it, my own opinion is like, it's pretty concrete. And to have something like that in the paranormal is unheard of, because so much stuff that's put out there, people are always having like that little like incy bit of like doubt, and you know, they see it and they're like, oh, this can't be, you know, but like you guys have the science and the explanation and the things to back up what you're doing. And like everybody needs to, I don't know why, honestly, why more people aren't using this, because this is so, it's cool. And the evidence that it produces is cool. And it's for like, for like my brain, like trying to, I don't know how you guys feel about like psychic mediums. I don't even really know how to classify myself. I've been gifted since I was little. So like I tend not to rely on tools as much as I do just my own intuition and understanding. So walking in
Mhm.
somewhere and picking up on just whatever comes to me and being able to kind of write that down and then unpack it, right? But I've wanted to dive more into the tangible evidence based side of things and how to explain why these things happen. And I love that with this, like it's that instant connection tool that just makes sense. And I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but as somebody who relies on just intuition and like my, I don't typically like tools because I feel like it's too much math. It's too much like I have to figure this out and
Distraction.
like I have to pick through it. And it's so I love that like with this, I'm not saying that it's easy by any means, but it almost kind of just makes it easier to get that evidence and to have it, you know,
Well,
It
kind of
to
be
your
is just
point, and that's a really good point. But one of the things when you're talking about what a medium relays back, and Ron saying, you can't materialistic science can't touch what consciousness is, or what love is, or what the taste of a strawberry is. They also can't really touch what you're feeling or what any other medium is feeling or experiencing. So what's great about Staticom is that it has the ability to produce what we call PPOs, or permanent paranormal objects, meaning something that's been captured, recorded. It can be replayed for anyone. It can be studied and analyzed. That gives the opportunity for science maybe to take a little closer look and go, okay, wait a minute, one of our theories is off because this shouldn't be occurring. Plus, it gives us the ability, and I know Ron and Lourdes have done this, I know Cherie and I have done this, but when a medium's explaining something that they think they're feeling or experiencing, Staticom can turn right around and confirm it or deny it or somewhere in between. But being able to get double evidence of what somebody says they're feeling and then be able to back it up with something that can be recorded and replayed is another huge plus to the paranormal field.
the validation. I think that's more so what I was trying to say. And I'm like, sometimes I'm not the best with my words, but trying to like figure out how to put that into words is like when you are just relying on, like you said, that consciousness, and then you need something to back it up, a tool or an evidence to kind of couple with that. And
Yeah.
that's why I just like sometimes with some of the tools, I just kind of give up on them because I feel like you're picking through so much and it's like this might have been something, it might have not been something, and I want something that's like this is irrefutable, like this is validating what you're picking up, what you're seeing and feeling, and this is concrete. So that's, I feel like that you definitely said it a lot better than I did. That was I was having trouble
Tony
getting that
says it.
one out.
Tony says it perfectly.
He
If you
does.
have the chance to go see him speak, do. He says it perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you.
The whole well deserved. The whole idea, like if you let's take this whole thing as a whole, right? Even like the mediumship stuff too. Consciousness, from what we believe, again through idealism, is what's called the ontological primitive, meaning when you try to explain reality, and we do this for the same reasons as, right, from our process, the natural progression was, what are the criticisms? Radial bleed through, randomness and white noise. So we rule those out. The next thing is that what does everybody in the paranormal field get? You don't think ghosts are real. That stuff's not real. Well, in order to determine whether something's hot or cold, you have to have an idea or an understanding what the definitions of those things are. I don't think a lot of people in the paranormal field take a moment to step back and go, what do I think reality is? That's not a scientific question. Science doesn't dwell in the realm of defining reality. That's a philosophy thing. And I don't think everybody takes the moment to do that. So we looked at that as the next progression in our trying to vet the whole process. And lo and behold, it allows for everything. So if you look at consciousness as what's called, again, the ontological primitive. So what does that mean? That means, like, if you try to explain your body, right? You can explain your tissues in terms of organs, organs in terms of cells, cells in terms of atoms, atoms in terms of subatomic particles. You can reduce for the purposes of explanation, but at some point you have to stop, or you go back in circles and you're chasing your tail. So you have to have in your ontology or your explanation of what reality is a reduction base, a point where you go, from this point, everything can emerge and be explained, but from this point, it cannot be reduced any further. This is the irreducible point. Every explanation, every ontology has the whole give me one miracle and I'll explain the rest. There has to be some kind of a jumping off point. So if you take consciousness from that as the reduction base, right? Mediumship, even when you go into a location, you're having psychical experience. But if reality is mentation or mental processing, you are intermingling mental processes with mental processes, because the house and the place that you're walking around are just representations of the world out there. It's not the world out there, right? So the equipment we use, same thing. People will think the equipment gives us extra sensory advantages where, we can only see part of the spectrum of light. We can only hear part of the spectrum of sound. So the equipment gives us extra sensory abilities. It doesn't. Because of the data you get from those things, you have to interpret with the same 5 senses that you had to begin with. So what do they do? How do they help? They modulate the experience. Same way terrestrial radio is flying past our heads now, but until you have a device that modulates it to the levels that we can hear or can see something, you don't know that you experience it. You still might be experiencing it, but you don't know that you're experiencing. That's the difference between conscious and what's called metaconscious, is to know you're having an experience. So it all kind of falls in that same bucket. We look at the senses, and this is why this is important to the paranormal, because think of anybody's work as a medium, as an investigator, right? We have senses. And one of the ways that there's a gentleman, Dr. Bernardo Kastrup, who's PhDs in computer engineering and philosophy, who's an analytic idealist from whom we've learned tremendous amounts, says our senses, we're like how a pilot is in a plane with a dashboard. And our senses are what gives the information. It measures the world out there, and it tells us on the dashboard of dials what's happening around us. That's how the pilot knows what's going on. He could have no windows. He could still fly the plane by what the instrumentation's telling him. That's what we get. But the thing that we do as people, when we use our instruments to read what's around us, is that we mistake the dashboard for the sky instead of it being a representation or a measurement of what is out there. The pilot never does that. He knows that this stuff is the dashboard panel. It's not the sky. It's measuring the sky. But that's, again, important to the paranormal, because all of the stuff that we call paranormal or supernatural becomes quite natural. Somewhere along the way, we have taken the description of something and made it primary over the thing described.
Right. We made measurements the reality. Right. Measurement.
Right? Because we define our world as how many pounds it is, how many hertz that is, how many yards it is, how many feet tall somebody is. Everything's the measurements, but those are the descriptions of the thing, not the thing being described. So they can't come first. That would be to say that you had a map of Delaware, and then from the map, you're going to extract the state of Delaware. The map only has any merit because it's pointing at something else. It's referential.
And the reason why we do that is because we feel like we're separated from nature, but we're not. We're part of nature. But that's why we do that. We think we're separated from it. Yeah. So for some reason we turn measurements into reality because we feel like we're not part of nature.
Yeah. The worst thing to happen to spirituality is the word spirituality, because it made people think that it was not a part of reality, that it was a separate category. It was something else. It was a different ontological primitive in defining reality. It's not part of reality. It's outside of that. And that's not the case. At least that's not how we see it.
I love how passionate and just like how kick-ass you guys are. This is, there's a lot of, no, seriously, there's a lot of like different perspectives and ideals and like in the way that you guys are talking about this. And like, I feel like not like, just like you're saying that we have separated it to a point where we're no longer a part of nature. Like that is super important and is not talked about nearly enough. And so, it kind of brings me to, I want to talk a little bit about your beginnings, because I feel like we didn't get to really like discuss that a little bit. Like everybody from where they are now in the paranormal, obviously we've all started somewhere and there's something that's led us to this point. So I guess I'll go in the order that I'm seeing you, so it might be different on your screens, but starting with you, Ron, where did you start in the
I'll
paranormal? Like, how did that start for you? Was it a physics science thing? Was it like, did you have an experience? Where did you start with this?
I'll give a condensed version of my story because I said some of it in my intro. Tony by far has the best how he got into the paranormal field story. It's my favorite every time I hear him tell it. I was always curious. I was always fascinated with this stuff. Looking back, I may have had things when I was younger that were what you would consider paranormal. Did not hit me at the time. I probably blocked some of it out because it was a little bit frightening at a young age. I was just always interested in this stuff. Then when it became more mainstream and watching it on TV, it really grabbed my attention. And I said, oh, people do this stuff. And when I lived in Los Angeles, the person I was seeing at the time, we went out and did some public events and got involved with teams and everything. And it was fascinating to me that this was being studied like at a serious level, and that some of the things that people were claiming were possible. And I had no reason to believe or disbelieve any of it, but it was just fascinating to me. And then I got hooked on, like I said before, the real time dialogue when I saw it actually unfold before my eyes.
And for me, well, I don't really have a starting point because I was born into it. So whenever well, this is the funny thing. All right, so my family practices espiritismo, and they would have ceremonies. And I know we went to a whole bunch of them, but I can only remember one. And the reason why I remember this one is because my mom didn't practice. She was the only one out of 10 children that didn't practice. And my cousins practiced too. So
Could you tell us what the practice was for some of us that aren't familiar with it?
well, it's more like I'll tell you what I can remember because I blocked most of it. But in the beginning, when they started the ceremony, they would gather the children together, and then they would bless and protect the children. So they would do, I'm not sure what kind of incense she was using or whatever. And then from there, they would start the ceremony. And when they did the ceremony, they would channel spirit, and spirit will be in them and have control of their bodies. So my cousin was under the influence of spirit, and she accidentally bumped into my mom. And then my mom was also under the influence. Remember, I told you she doesn't practice. And so now they're both under the influence. I never seen my mother move that way. It was a weird movement. So, and it was me and my brother, and we were scared. And they took us away. I remember that they took the spirit out of her. They rushed to her and they did something. And so from there, I didn't want to go anymore. I was like, that's it. And she wanted to go and I would refuse. And then we stopped going. But I would have experiences though. I would have dreams and things would happen. But I knew that these things were true. But I didn't want anything to do with any kind of a thing like that or anything. And then I met him, but I had seen Ghost Adventures with my daughter. Mm-hmm. She got me back in a little bit. Like she was watching Ghost Adventures and I seen a couple of shows or whatever. And then I met him and then he brought me full blown back into it. So that's how, yeah. That's my story.
That's a pretty hefty first story though. Could you tell us a little bit about like your culture a little bit, like where you're from?
My both parents are from Puerto Rico. Okay. So Espiritismo is a practice of mediumship from the Caribbean. I forgot where it originated from though.
Yeah, and people confuse it sometimes with Santeria. Yeah. It's along the lines of that.
But it's similar.
Okay.
So that's where, so that's Puerto Rico.
Awesome.
Because I have a friend, Haiti, who also her family practices, and I don't think they practice Espiritismo, but she has the same kind of similarities, and her family's from Dominican Republic, so which is not far, right, from
I
Puerto
was gonna
Rico.
say I have a friend from the DR, and he's told me some crazy stories about some of the spiritual practices there. So I think that's really I think it's cool just to see different cultures, different places around the world, and how they practice. And so that's why I wanted to ask. So I'm
Yeah,
sorry
my
that was
grandmother.
scary, but
It was scary, and I just recently started talking about it because, and it was Johnny Zaffis. He said something to me, and it just made me want to talk about it now.
Yeah.
But before that, I never really spoke about it.
Yeah.
I really never really spoke
No,
about
she
it.
didn't.
I was gonna say something, but I lost my train of thought now. Oh, I was gonna say my grandmother was a healer.
That's right.
She
Oh,
was
really?
a very well-known healer in Puerto Rico, in her town and the surrounding towns. And she would have people line up. And
Gosh, I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
I
it
love
was
that.
nice. Yeah, I did. I used to help her when I was little. Not with touching anybody, but she would ask
Just
me for stuff, and like, okay.
Oh, but I love that though. I think that's so neat. I can't get over like how sweet that is, and just like, the less scarier side of, your experience, and just having that. It sounds like
Right.
you had a good bond with your grandmother.
Oh yeah, I loved her to that. I feel like she's always around me.
Oh,
It's
she
good that
is
I
100%.
Yeah,
good
100%.
that I went first because I have the least intriguing story of the three.
yeah.
So
Tony's
it just gets like increasingly spooky.
Ah,
All
no.
right.
that's
Well,
spooky.
This one is better though. This
Tony's
is a
just
more
great. Yeah.
well, they hyped you up, Tony. So drum roll, please.
I don't know. My wife dragged me into it, and when the television shows 14 years ago, 15 years ago started coming out, she was watching them. And my father was a physics, chemistry, and physical science instructor. So anything I asked as a kid was always science related. Spirits, ghost entities had no impact on me at all, until she said to me, Valentine's Day 2010, she said, I want to do something different, because we'd normally go to a hotel, hang out by the pool, drink. She said, I want to go ghost hunting. And I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. Well, I had two choices. I could take her or have her mad at me until next Valentine's Day. So I took, but it was
Happy
when,
wife, happy life, right?
exactly. So it was when she started reviewing, and there were voices on there. There were things in the photograph that weren't there when we took it. She captured a live apparition on video. That's how it all began. We got absolutely fascinated with EVP, and then Spirit Box, ITC, and that's what's led us up today to Staticom. But I just want to say something really quick. Speaking of Staticom, since we just spoke for almost 50 minutes about the philosophy, were there clips?
Yeah,
Yes.
so we're gonna show those. Yeah, I was gonna show those a little bit more towards the end, but because I wanted to kind of play them like back to back and give people all the different clips. But if you want, we could show them now.
Well, I just think after hearing that lengthy explanation about the philosophy behind it, it would be good if they could see what it can actually do.
Yeah. Here, we'll pull those up. Give me 1 second. Which one? So I know you guys had brought one up before. There was one in particular that you were talking about, a spirit coming through, but it was kind of a general explanation. So I wasn't sure which one you were talking about. Wasn't sure if you wanted me to pull that one up first.
probably damnation. I think.
Oh, the one that he said was like a minute long.
I think.
Oh, that's
so.
my favorite one. Okay.
You can save it for last if you want
Yeah,
to.
it's fine.
I sent you a few. You have like
That was the one that gave me like just tingles down my spine. We'll show it though, because I think this is a good one. Let me. Now I am gonna, just because sometimes the clips can be wonky with hearing them, just let me know if you guys can hear it. I'm gonna try. All right. All right. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Why are you so angry?
Not fair, I heard.
We know what we're doing. What is the easiest one? Stagnation.
So scary. So rest assured, I checked on my phone, make sure everybody else can hear it. It plays on there, so it just might be low for us. But
Yeah, because some of the words were dropping out a little bit.
yeah, that's a super spooky clip, and we're gonna include those in the podcast episode once we edit it, so you'll hear it full on loud, and then in the YouTube video. But I mean, it, like you said, it's just like talking. Like it's just like a conversation. It's so smooth. And like I don't know. Do you guys what did you think about that particular clip that you where were you? What do you think you were dealing with? What kind of followed that? Like give us some details on that.
That was the Shanley Hotel in Napanoch, New York. It's like an hour or so from Manhattan, New York State. It was still when we called it direct radio voice, so that was a vacant channel for white noise. We don't know what we were dealing with, but that wasn't even really communication as much as it was a rant. That was one voice on a rant for a minute and change. I've never seen a ghost box do that. With that, especially with the clarity. Tony's an authority for that. He built them, and he built some of the best ones that I've ever heard.
Yeah, that doesn't occur on a spirit box. It just doesn't.
Do you still build them, Tony?
No. As soon as I realized DRV existed through Ron and Lourdes, and then we upgraded it to Staticom, I haven't touched one in probably 2 years.
Okay.
That's profound.
There's a huge difference in the communication. I mean, ITC is supposed to be two-way communication. This is the first device. DRV was not bad. Staticom is even better, clearer, but it is true two-way communication.
That's so wild.
Yeah. That's part of what his backstory. I don't like it to get lost ever when we introduce ourselves on a show. In the beginning, when his wife dragged him out there, he didn't even believe any of this stuff. Then he saw evidence of it, moved forward, built a nice body of work, built ghost boxes, which is the standard in ITC, as we explained, right? It's the branded modality. Then he sees something else like this, gets involved. He's made tremendous improvements to it since he's been involved with us.
Yeah.
We've all collectively built this thing even better as a unit, as four. And those things say something. First, it says that he's open-minded and genuinely looking to do research, because he's not ever closed off with I've hit the ultimate, I don't need anything else. He's always looking for better, experimenting in front of live audiences. And the fact that he built 12, 13 years of building boxes and hasn't touched one in 2 years says a lot.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you had maybe tinkered with, because I know even when you find a method that's obviously tried and true and you're still, I wasn't sure if it was still kind of like a hobby or something that maybe you were creating something new out of, just looking to see if there was any developments on that. But that does speak volumes that you feel that this is pretty much the top of the top. And I think you guys, you have something here. This is amazing. I want to show the next clip where it says, I am somebody's consciousness. I thought that was a really, really neat clip. So let me get that up here for you guys so that you guys can check this out. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about that clip? I kind of want to, like, as we watching the clips, kind of dissect that with you.
Well, I mean, for me, all that time that we spent talking about philosophy of mind and reality being consciousness, that was a vocalization that was extremely clear, specifically that word, and identified as consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Didn't
And
say whose consciousness, but it's consciousness.
now, were you guys at a specific location for that, or was that
What's this? Home?
Yeah, we were here.
Here.
okay? Do you
And
guys
apparently
remember?
he's Tony's friend.
It seems
Yeah,
like
we got-
you're a hot commodity there, Tony, in the afterlife.
They
You
have
got a
no
lot of
idea.
friends.
Name comes up once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while, constantly. It's great.
I'm trying to see. So we had the William, my son clip. That I wanted to roll again. We're gonna fingers crossed that you guys can hear this pretty well. I just want to share this because I thought this one was really neat as well.
So if you're Jenny, who are you looking for?
It hurts Flores. It hurts Flores. It hurts Flores. What are you here for, Jenny? What is your son's name? Did you say William? I'm not sure.
If you said William, please repeat it.
William, that was weird. And he's out there.
All right, so that one was another really, really cool Staticom clip. So that one, you could hear them saying, William, my son, in response to you guys were asking about, what they had just said, and it seemed like they repeatedly said it. So, it wasn't one of those things where it just kind of swept across one time, but it was, you asked the question, they repeated it, and then continued to repeat it. So I thought that was really, really awesome.
That was last weekend in Chester, New Jersey, at an event we did, and there was a gentleman there named William who
Okay.
stepped out to smoke. His
Well,
mother's
then
name came through.
The name Jenny kept coming through, and he goes, "That's my mom's name." So
Oh.
he started asking questions, and then he decided to go outside to smoke.
And then he kept hearing "stop smoking," William, my son, all that stuff. So his wife
Yeah.
was in tears.
Yeah.
Oh, that's special though. That's
Yeah.
so special. Do you guys typically when you I know you guys said that you when you were at like the house in between you got a lot of personal responses. Do you tend to find that you have a lot more personal experiences versus like if you go to a haunted location kind of just I don't want to say willy-nilly, but just kind of random maybe communications that come through and just have certain things to say? Like, do you typically find that like team members will come through, certain people who maybe you're working with at that location?
Do you want to answer first, Tony, or?
The thing about any voice that comes through Staticom is they're not bound to a location, which is why we cannot determine a location to be haunted by receiving voice interaction.
Okay.
They are not bound to time and space. They can come from anywhere. So do certain locations seem to produce additional voices? Yes, they do. Have we gotten voices that have interacted to the location that we are at? Yes, we have. Ron had a nice conversation with James Patterson a week before he even showed up at the location. So yeah, there is definitely configuration between, but just because a voice is answering you doesn't mean it's in the location that you're actually standing in.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I've noticed in private investigations, when people are investigators, we'll get relevant responses to the history of the place if we ask, certain questions. But then if it's a public investigation, usually the public, they want to speak to their loved ones.
Yeah.
So that kind of gets lost, and we get personal responses from, for the public. So I guess whatever's going on, Staticom says, well, not Staticom says, but Staticom provides whatever it is, the
Yeah.
intention. If the intention is to speak to loved ones,
That's what's going
if
to
the
kind of what it's
intention
going to
is,
produce.
yeah, if the
So
intention is for an investigation, then
another kind of hot take that I'm sure is kind of a burning question on a lot of people's minds, because it tends to be, I guess I should say, it's kind of also a stigma about the paranormal, is that when you start to do these kinds of communications, like anything, like a Ouija board, whether it's, EVP sessions, there's always a risk associated, with those kinds of things. How do you feel so far with using the Staticom to communicate? Have you guys run into, I know we heard the clip with the damnation thing. Do you think that that was something inhuman? Do you think it was a negative entity? And when you run into those kinds of things, have you had anything follow you home or create kind of a icky environment, so to say?
Well, the damnation clip, we saw it more as a warning because, people, they just love all that negative stuff. They enjoy it, on TV, the paranormal shows are all about demons and because people love it. And I think it was just more of a warning that people need to check themselves, That's what I think.
Yeah, it is a cautionary message. That's what I think too. We don't really have anything. Even if something says demon, it doesn't mean that that's what it is. If I say astronaut, it doesn't mean I'm going to space next Wednesday. I mean, it's just it's communication perhaps, but it's not necessarily causal in how it's referring to a certain description of something, saying a word like that.
Yeah.
It's different than, it's not the same as Ouija boards or mediumship in instances, because the medium for us is the white noise, is the mechanism through which we're running it. It's not channeling through us. So that's different. Sometimes those things get conflated and people say, oh, it's just like doing a spirit box or it's just like a Ouija board. No, one of them, you're the medium. The other one is electronic medium. So it's different. But we really haven't had really any problems with anything like that. Any dark, demonic. A lot of stuff is just like the mirrors and axioms with these beliefs. A lot of it's cultural baggage or stuff that's rooted in spiritual bypassing. It's ways for people to hold on to a belief and explain something without actually explaining something, completely disregarding whether or not it's in league with anything scientific at all. It's just ghosty stuff. That's what they do.
I mean, we get negative voices. We do.
Yeah.
They curse. They'll say demons, devil. They negative
There's
voices.
grumpy people in real life too that curse, and I mean, not that it's the only reason I ask these questions is because they tend to be questions that we get so often after we have guests on, like, oh, well, if they're doing this, like, what does that open them up to? And so I always like to give our guests the opportunity to kind of explain, where the risk lies or where it does not lie at all. Because people like you've already stated that there's with all these shows and there's a lot of fluff and stuff that happens in the community. People tend to just create so many stigmas about the work that is going on. So I just always like to pose that question just so that you guys can kind of educate a little bit on that and your views and opinions on it.
Yeah.
The-
Just
the
to show,
que-
go ahead. I was going to say just to show the diversity and not just have us answer. I wanted Tony to speak to that also because that's another set of results that's not ours.
Yeah.
the main factor that influences people in regards to what's shown in the paranormal is networks. And unfortunately, networks don't care one iota about proving anything in the paranormal. They care about one thing and one thing only, and that's ratings.
Yeah.
That is why you hear so much about demon, 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 demon. The reality is, in 14 years, I've maybe come across one that I would say was on the darker side. Would I say it was demonic? No, but a definitely darker side. And I mean, the house actually had to be exorcised. Does that mean it was demonic? Don't know.
Yeah.
But it is not a regular occurrence like certain TV shows where they get possessed every other show. It doesn't occur like that. But on the flip side of it, where there is good, there is also dark. And that clip from Damnation from the Shanley was a warning that you either have to take it one of two ways. You can't ignore it and you can't laugh at it. And I think that message that Ron and Lourdes played was saying, hey, you may think this is a joke, but it's not. And if there is good and light, there is also dark and evil. It may not be around every corner, but it is there. And so, it's the whole definition of what paranormal is. And that is why it is one of the toughest fields to be in and do research, because you've got materialistic science who thinks you're off your rocker. And then you've got religion that says, nope, you can't be doing that. If you're speaking to something, it's demon. Okay, well, what we've been speaking to, and we've been doing it for 13 years at least, has never been demonic. Nothing's ever, have we brought stuff home from investigations? Yeah, we have. But did it come from communicating through a spirit box, DRV, or Staticom? No, it hasn't.
No. Yeah, and that's exactly why I love asking that question, just because I feel like it's important to get different feedback from many different people and to be able to educate a lot of the younger minds that are entering the paranormal field, because we've come into this place and I hope that maybe you can kind of see where I'm coming from, but there's a lot of youth that's on, these social media platforms, and they are watching some of the fluffier paranormal channels that kind of, and I understand like everybody has their thing. They kind of do theatrics and there's a lot, but I think sometimes they fall away from the beauty that is evidence and actual investigating and the hard work that goes into it. And then, as we know, we've all done really silly, stupid things when we were young. We don't really think things through. And I see a lot of, disrespectful behavior in the paranormal field. A lot of younger kids that think that they're doing the right thing and are dabbling and it just are not exactly heeding that warning and could land themselves in some hot soup. So I just like, that's why I like to have experienced people who come on this show be able to kind of speak to it and explain that, not everything that you see, is what it is. And that you do need to enter and approach this field with respect and caution. So I kind of we're going on like an hour and 14 minutes, so we have about another like 10-20 minutes left. I kind of wanted to chat a little bit about plans for Staticom. If you're able to talk about some of those. I'm not sure if some things are kind of under wraps but what are some of your future plans for the Staticom project and what's in the works?
Well, I mean, because the research is still going on, because we don't know the limits of Staticom or even what it's fully capable of doing, people ask us, hey, if you can speak to spirits, can you speak to extraterrestrials? Well, we've actually asked that question and was told yes. Where does that take it next? Can Bigfoot be communicated with? Can he communicate through Staticom? We don't know any of those answers. So until the research continues to unfold, the destiny of it will be unsure.
Yeah.
But as certain pieces become visible of what we know it can do and what we know it can't do, that'll help direct a path of where it's going to end up next. Like I said, right now it's a blank slate and there's a million possibilities for it. But the main next steps are to continue the road that we started on, making sure that that audio is clear, make sure that's understandable, make sure that nobody in the audience is guessing at what was said, and continuing to increase the communication back and forth from a two-way communication standpoint, because that's technically what it was designed to do.
Okay. Awesome. I think
Yep.
that's a fabulous answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much where we're going. It's not something we're selling right now. It wasn't dreamt up to go to market. When we do at some point, we'll probably do some kind of a mapping, a consult, and lay it out. This is the components we use. This is what goes where. These are the settings. There will be an onus of responsibility on anybody who would buy it at that time, because we can't geek squad everybody. Anytime something goes wrong, it happens to us, and we lose our minds.
Literally.
It'd be hard for us to deal with everybody else doing that. And we also have to do it that way as a consult, because a lot of the individual, it's a very Frankenstein's monster. The way this thing is put together is a bunch of different components on a digital workspace. And some of them are licensed. So we can't have thousands of licenses floating around and all of our last names that other people are just running amok with, doing whatever.
Yeah.
But if they go out and buy their own based on the mapping and we show them how to set it up, that'll be what it is. But we've made some drastic changes to a version of it recently. Then we pulled it back, and then we repealed it, and then we went forward again. And so there's a lot back and forth with moving it up. It's not a position. It's like selling the car while you're still putting like the fenders and rims on. And then you go, no, I don't want that with different rims. And somebody's going, well, wait, is it 20,000 or 30? The wheels are different. It's like, so we're still building it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ideally, since that's pretty much where we're going, we're going to be in August. In August 17th, we're going to be at the Paranormal Research Symposium in Gettysburg. The four of us will be speaking on Staticom and analytic idealism, the philosophy of mind we were talking about. So that's one of the big things we're doing. We submitted an abstract. We got accepted to speak. So now we have to do a full white paper, a full research paper on it. If we can, in the last couple of minutes, maybe grab a couple more of those clips, because I think hitting it a little bit more hard with them seeing, now that they understand the philosophy, they understand the methodology, the way we've explained it. And that's pretty much the forecasting going forward that we have right now. And
absolutely.
We're both doing events and Paracons coming up on both coasts pretty frequently.
Well, I'm hoping that maybe I'll get to meet you guys in person finally. I'm hoping that we're going to be at the Gettysburg. What is it called?
The Battlefield Bash in July.
Battlefield Bash. Yeah, I was like, I knew it was a BB. I always call it the Gettysburg BB, and I was like, what does that stand for again? But yeah, we're avid Gettysburgers, so we were going to try and go to that. So hopefully, I'll get to meet you guys. That would be really exciting and get to see it in action.
We'll be there. We're trying to get these guys there too, but they're going to be there in August for the symposium, so I don't know if they can do both yet or not, but for sure.
Yeah, and do you mind me asking, so where about are you guys? Northern New Jersey, Southern New Jersey?
We're in Northern New Jersey. We're literally right across the Hudson River from the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Okay, cool. I'm originally from Parsippany. So I'm all my family is still in New Jersey. So I was like, maybe, whenever I can get back down to Jersey, we can do lunch or something one day. And if you guys want to do maybe like a live demonstration, getting some cool video of that and getting that out, I think it would be really neat for people to see.
Not a problem.
But yeah, I think that would be awesome. But I want to do you
Yeah,
want
what's
to
left?
show the energy of your mind clip?
Oh,
Yes,
that's a good one.
that one is
I
one of
like
the
that
ones.
one a lot.
There's a couple of them that they're not long. If we could roll through a few of them, and then we can
Yeah.
always. But that's definitely on the list. Yes.
All right, awesome.
How do you hear me speak?
The first one.
Mhm.
Yeah. I thought that one was really, really neat. Let me see here. All right, and then the next one. So it's just Tony being a hot commodity yet again.
Yep.
And then we have DRV, Ron and Tony. Let me get this up there.
So this one's great because it mentions again the third clip that mentions Tony, and it mentions Marcello Bacci, who we referred to earlier.
Tony's my friend. I would agree. Can you say any voices?
Yeah, so that was, I mean, that was a really cool one too. That was kind of more of that, like it seemed like it was more of that back and forth.
Yeah, that was a lot of dialogue. That we basically thought there was like a couple of days after Tony started doing direct radio voice. We thought that they were asking if he's doing what you're doing. Is he cool? Is he okay? Because I thought it was a statement. Tony's your friend. I'm thinking, and she goes, I'm asking.
I like the way they posed. They were like, we must deal with people like you. And I was like I didn't know how to take that at first. I was like,
Yeah.
All right, let's do this is the No Cops clip.
Oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, we're having some technical difficulty.
What's your favorite part of this house? What room?
is the bocce clip.
This one's
Spirits, can you please try to communicate with us through this device? Who's watching?
Bocce. That was clear. Do you want us to do the rumbling?
Bocce, are you keeping track of what we're doing?
Marcello, can you see us?
Yes.
Thank you. Marcello, you started this method. It's working. Can you please try to communicate with us?
I'll say glad
Yeah.
to meet you.
I love that clip.
Yeah, that's one of the clearest, most direct ones that we've gotten probably amongst the four of us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see.
it's a good example, true, of what the two-way communication is supposed to be. You know, question asked, answer given, back and forth, back and forth. And that one was actually captured over a year ago.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Have you guys ever connected with the same like I know you said that there's really like it's not bound to any location or anything like that, but have you ever connected with the same spirit more than once over different sessions?
Yes. Yeah, we have.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it was about 5 days in a row. And
Wow.
it was the only spirit we heard over and over and over. And Ron and Lourdes had a story which I'll let them tell about. His name's eluding me at the moment. The guy from Montgomery House.
Patterson.
Yeah, James Patterson.
James Patterson, yes. Let you guys tell that.
Sure. Well, we had one night, Tony and Cherie were doing a digital seance, is what we call the live events for people. We make it a seance, not just a Staticom session, because seances have people focused and paying attention, not opening snacks and pouring coffee and missing half of it. So we tried to go with that route as far as theme. He was doing an event, and we asked at home here in New Jersey how many attendees he had. And then the next day I talked to him. I said, did you happen to have, I don't know, 40 people? And he goes, that's exactly how many people showed up. How did you know? Because we asked. And that's what the voice said, 40.
What?
How many attendees they had. The James Patterson one, the first time Tony and Cherie, us two, and then Chris and Audra from our show were all in the same location. Because they live, Chris and Audra used to be in Arizona. They're now in North Carolina. We're in Jersey. They're in Arizona. So we went to the Montgomery House in Montgomery County, North Carolina, where Chris and Audra run this place for the Historical Society, and we're all there. 2 weeks or so prior, every time Lourdes and I turn this on, at the Shanley, at home, we keep hearing James, James, James. So there's a million people on the planet named James. We know more than one, so we always, even when we do events, James who? Last name, something. Patterson. Didn't mean anything to us. We got it for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We get there, we ask Chris and Audra in North Carolina, does it mean anything to you? They go, no, we don't know, nothing comes to mind. All right. So we go to the Montgomery House, we put our equipment down, we're going to go to dinner, come back, start. While we're putting our equipment down, we walk through the location, they show us around. We go upstairs to what used to be one of the bedrooms. It's a memorial room or something now. And Chris's wife, Audra, points at the wall and she goes,
She couldn't even talk.
Right.
On the wall, there was a picture of a pilot, and his name was James Patterson. We were like, what? It was crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna let Tony tell the other part of this story because there's no way I'll tell this as good as he does. So now we're shocked and we're talking about this over dinner like ad nauseum, like we couldn't believe it. We go back and we go start the setup. Everybody puts their equipment where they're going to go. They get their batteries in, whatever. I go upstairs and set up the thing, and Tony and I get the whole Staticom thing set up to go. Everybody goes downstairs except me, and then I turned it on while everybody was downstairs. And then what happened next?
All he hears, Ron hears it's James, and Ron's like, "No, James who? Patterson." Ron's like, "Nope, nope," and he literally. There were a lot of other expressive words in there. I'm not going to say them on the podcast. There were some 4-letter words in front of the no. But literally, he repeated them every step he came down the stairs. We had it on recording. It was hilarious.
That is fantastic.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, no effing way. No way, no way. The whole way down the stairs, you can hear me on the recorders downstairs. I couldn't believe it. It's the first thing that came through when I turned it on.
Yeah, it was kind of funny, but it was shocking because we asked and asked and asked, and then we go into that room. There's a huge picture of him up on the wall.
Yeah.
And they had no idea who this guy was.
No, they probably didn't pay much attention to it
That's
until
so funny.
his name was brought up, which
You should have seen her face. She just pointed like,
Yeah, Audra couldn't even talk.
because she couldn't talk. She was like, and I followed her finger. I was like,
The validation. Oh my gosh. It must feel like Christmas every day using this because it just, the way that like, I can't even imagine. I'd be jumping out of my seat with every response. That is amazing.
And worth repeating based on the ones you've shown and whatever else we can squeeze in here before we're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, we got 2 more.
And Tony says it best. Tony, what does white noise have or not have?
no audio data whatsoever. None of those voices should be there. They shouldn't.
white
Wow.
noise.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so we got 2 clips left. This is the Trust Me clip. So I'm going to play that for y'all now.
So precious.
Wow.
So that's the Montgomery house, and there's a room off to where I'm sitting in the video, my left shoulder, farthest from the camera. That's where the James Patterson room is, right behind there.
The picture.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, wow. All right, this one.
And just a quick shout out. If you ever in North Carolina, check out the Montgomery house.
Montgomery house, yeah.
We're going to be
Yeah.
going to the Carolinas soon, so I might have to
We'll
check
connect
that
you
out.
with them.
Yeah.
We'll connect you with
Yeah,
them.
it's a fantastic location. We had a ton of activity.
I definitely am going to want to check that out. So this is the bad connection clip.
Maybe they're trying to connect.
I'll let it play out for a minute.
If that's you trying to connect to Tony and Cherie, please keep doing your thing then.
What happened here? What happened? Sorry about that.
Oh, wow. I think I really love that one the best. The way that it responded, it appears like just the way it said it appears what did it say? Your connection or your
instrument appears to have pulsing beats, and
pulsing beats. That's
Yeah.
I was having computer problems. That was not a fun night for me.
Oh my God, it was not for me either.
I know how that goes. I can understand.
Yeah.
So how often do you have to tweak this?
They're constantly working on it, because they do the sessions. We do sessions at home. Tony just had a big move, but he does sessions at home, and they're always working on it,
Usually the adjustments are minor, but when something goes majorly wrong, it's a feat to get it back running again. I mean, there's probably 25 or 30 components with 10 dials each.
Okay.
You turn one dial on one, messes the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
But
if you
when
don't
they
know-
when go ahead, Tony.
I was gonna say, if you didn't know you hit it or moved it, it can take you days to find out what went wrong.
Yeah.
Dang.
But when we're in an investigation or something like that, if we have, we don't mess with it then, right?
Yeah.
We don't they don't really have to do that much tweaking. They pretty much just let it run and
Yeah.
it does what it does.
And then
Yeah.
update
Yeah.
as needed. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. I mean, I can't wait to, like I said, hopefully we get a chance to see this in person and get to witness this. 'Cause it is just, I know I keep saying it, it's just so neat. Never experienced anything like it, never seen anything like it. So I've always been a huge fan of like the Estes method. It's probably one of my favorite things to do. And I love spirit boxes. I've just always, I don't know. Like I said, it's just an easy, for me, in my opinion, I just think it's an easier way to communicate. So like I said, I'm not a huge fan of trying to like dig through tools and trying to figure out, what does this mean? But just having that direct communication is it's priceless. So, I mean,
I
kudos to you
think for
guys.
me, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think for me, it's the fact that it's pure white noise. It's like the
Yeah.
closest thing to me as catching a voice on a digital recorder.
Yeah.
It's white noise. It has no data.
Yeah.
Their voices. That's
Yeah.
like mind blowing.
Yeah.
It
That's how spirit
is.
communication evolved. EVP research gave birth to direct radio voice, which was just using a vacant channel with white noise, no broadcast. And then Frank Sumption's making the ghost box was the thing that we're probably not the most popular ITC people for this position, but I don't think it's a progression because progress delineates a foundation that you build upon and it keeps moving forward with the stuff that was there prior that worked, and it keeps moving in a linear timeline of progression. I'm not to define the word with the word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
This was more efficient, less variables involved to cause doubt. It got lost because what became popular when ghost hunting became popular, when paranormal became less taboo, was the ghost box.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the ghost box model was a progression. I think it was a diversion. I think it works, but I think it's limited in scope compared to what this can do. One of the best ghost box builders in our time, and I'll say that to anybody, and there's some brilliant people, is right below us, right here. He's one of the best. He doesn't use them anymore.
Yeah.
And thank God for us that he doesn't, because he's constantly working at this. And some of the reasons this has gotten better from earlier clips is because he's involved in this.
And
Yeah.
His
So-
boxes were so good that we still trying to get one of them from
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
they did. There were some good ones as far as the clarity of what came through, but when you put it up against DRV or let alone Staticom, when you can get full sentence responses, you can't match that to a spirit box. And
Yeah.
the clarity of them, even on my clearest spirit box, yeah, there were some ones that sounded really good, but Staticom will do that consistently. And
yeah,
as far as the reliability of it and the knowing that if something's said, you're going to hear it, and that you can hear an entire sentence or two or three sentences. Never got that on a spirit box. So yeah, I dropped it really quick when I learned of this.
Tony
Wow.
called me up one time and he goes, all right, something happened to me that has never happened before. Right. And this is someone who built boxes for years. Tell her what that was, because that's also something that the builder of the box would not probably have the same story.
So like I said, I think we built about 14 boxes, and we would take them to different haunted locations, and I would ask question after question after question. And maybe after 10 questions, maybe I'd get a response, maybe 20 questions. One of the times I flipped on, I don't remember whether it was DRV. I think it was DRV at that time still.
Yeah.
But they were asking me questions. I was the one answering. And then that was like a 7-minute conversation, because they started telling us about some behavior they had done that they felt bad about. Some people were hurt. There was a lost treasure. I mean, it just, and they're asking me, will I help? Can I? It was crazy. I've never experienced that until this system.
So they hit you with that reverse Uno card pretty hard, huh?
Real hard. But I've never been
That's
asked
crazy.
questions through a paranormal device ever.
Yeah, I think you're the first person I've ever heard say that. I don't think I've ever. Usually, I mean, we're always the ones chasing the questions and trying to get answers. So I mean, that's insane. And you said did you have that recorded?
Oh, I do. Yep.
That's awesome. If you I mean, if you guys have that clip somewhere and it's something that I would love, to share that you know, in this podcast if you want to get that to me, because I think that's a really profound piece of evidence for people to hear as well.
Oh,
I'll see if I can locate it. Like Ron and Lola said, we just moved, and most of our boxes, because of everything going on, are still packed. And I don't know what boxes there.
Take your time then. Yeah, take your time. No worries on that. But I just that's really, really cool. That just is like super exciting. So I'd love, to share that for you guys. But yeah, I mean, I feel like there's still so much more that I need to learn about this, because it is just I can't believe how much work has gone into this, and just what an amazing job you guys are doing. So I truly say that from the bottom of my heart. I mean, this is astonishing, and I can't wait to tell everybody that I know about it, because I've just never seen anything like it. And I just don't I'm sorry for my lack of questions. I just feel like I'm just learning a lot, and it's kind of mind-blowing. So I'm sitting here just trying to unpack everything and process it, because this is my first experience with it. So we look forward to like I said, getting to see you guys and crossing paths at Paracons and events. And if you guys have any talks, Tony, that you're doing that we can, send out to our followers and get everybody in on the know, I would love to do that.
That's awesome. And we appreciate the compliments on Staticom, but really what the truly most amazing thing of this is the 4 team members that have put this device together, because it is nonstop commitment, passion, and complete dedication to trying to find true answers. And that's how Staticom was born. And it's the 3.5, because my half isn't here, people that put it together, and that's Ron, Lourdes, Cherie, and I, and that's part of, I think, what makes it so successful.
That's the heartbeat behind Staticom.
Correct.
I agree with that completely too. We say that there's our chain has no weak link. Everybody has different things that they bring to the table. And the best decision we made after starting and bringing back Direct Radio Boys was to partner with Tony and Cherie, because everything about their approach and their body of work before that was remarkable. They got involved, and it was instantly apparent to us that this was going to make a difference, and it has. It has since we're doing it. It has with the methodology, with the results, with the lectures, the philosophy that we've adopted now that we shared some of. It all has taken root and grown much more rapidly since it's been the 4 of us. And we're swimming upstream. So we need that strength in numbers too, right? We're doing a lost art of ITC that we've developed and changed, but it comes from Direct Radio Voice, when everybody knows the box sweeping box. So we're going against the current. We're preaching a philosophy. We're redefining reality through that. There's a lot that we're trying to get done. We need everything we have.
Yeah.
So yes, we appreciate it. Thank you.
So we very much appreciate
it's a lot to take in.
The kind words too. The community has been great to us. It brought us into Tony, Cherie, and Chris and Audra's presence when we do the shows on Monday nights on the UNX network on Monday 9 o'clock. And this got us through the pandemic when people couldn't go out and go ghost hunting, and everybody was feeling detached and like lost.
We were good.
We were running this crazy stuff back and forth. We're talking to Tony and Cherie and going over it, and so
I love that though.
We
that camaraderie is priceless.
It is. We couldn't ask for a better group. We couldn't.
Yeah.
And so at the end of every podcast, we tend to wrap it up with a saying because there's always a stigma on what it means to be weird and out there and out of the box. So we always ask our guests to join us on our closing statement. We say, until next time, let's get weird. So I want to ask you guys to join in with me as we kind of close things up. So we're probably not going to get it on the first try. We always try and do it, and nobody is ever in sync. But until next time, everybody, let's get weird.
Weird. There you go.
Thank you guys so much for joining in tonight. And thank you guys for being on the podcast. Seriously, you are amazing. I can't say that enough. From the bottom of my heart, I am just so proud of you. I know that I don't know you that well, but keep doing what you're doing. Stick together, and all those good things that you're putting out into the universe, all those great things that you're creating is going to come back to you 20-fold. I just know it. So yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, that means a lot. We appreciate it. And we
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to be here.
Absolutely.
appreciate
Absolutely. Listen, you guys can come on anytime you want. Anytime you want. Big hearts. I don't know. Is that supposed to trigger something?
I don't know.
Like a
I
hand
can't
motion.
really do that.
But yeah, so you guys are welcome anytime. So as developments come, if you want to hop on and we can chat about those things, or if you want to do, a live Q&A or a live demonstration on the Ghoulfriend Hour, we're always here for you. So yeah.
I think we did 2 hours.
Yeah, we're 1 hour and 47 minutes. So we had a lot to talk about. So we will see you guys soon. Stay tuned for developments on the Staticom project, and follow the Ghoulfriend Hour, the Staticom project, for all of the developments and things that we're going to share. But have a good night, everybody.